Good morning, friends. The primary topic of our discussion today is the potential for cold temperatures and winter weather. We are carefully tracking a storm system just ahead of us that requires our attention, as it is expected to bring wintry conditions a little farther south than the storms we have seen recently. We will begin our forecast with the southern plains and then shift our focus to the upper regions. We will then cover the southeast, the mid-Atlantic, and the northeast. You will find timestamps in the description to help you navigate to the section that interests you most. After we cover this immediate system, we will look deeper into next week and the start of December to discuss the evolving weather pattern. As you know, I thoroughly enjoy analyzing winter weather, and it is my pleasure to share these details with you on this fine Wednesday morning. I certainly hope you all are doing well. If you find this information useful, I would be grateful if you would subscribe and like the video. And as always, if there is anything I can hold in my thoughts for you, please do not hesitate to mention it in the comments below. Now, let's get right to it. The winter storm we have been discussing for the past couple of days is now exiting the region and is currently affecting areas of Atlantic Canada. We are observing some snow across the Great Lakes region, which is a clipper system being enhanced by the lake effect, and it is followed by a significant push of cold air. This is, in fact, record-breaking cold air, and we will talk more about that toward the end of the video. There is also a small area of energy appearing over the middle of the country, though I am not certain if this precipitation is reaching the ground. If you are in Kansas, I would be interested to hear from you. Nebraska, Missouri, or Iowa, please let me know if you are observing any light rain or snow on the ground. We do have confirmation of some light snow across South Dakota, and it is definitely reaching the ground in Colorado. This activity is all associated with our approaching weather system. We are also tracking a piece of energy that is dipping down into parts of Arizona. I do anticipate that moisture will begin to increase over the next 24 hours, especially in southeast Texas and Louisiana, as this system starts to pull moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. This will bring a soaking rain to the deep south states, where it is very much needed. Now, let us review the current conditions, including all watches, warnings, and advisories. We currently have winter weather advisories posted for parts of Colorado, and for the northern sections of New Mexico. The areas shaded in pink indicate winter storm warnings. Taking a closer look, you will see we also have special weather statements issued for the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas. These statements mention the possibility of some snow within the next 24 hours, and we will examine that shortly. I also want to draw your attention to another area. It is starting to become more aggressive in its forecast now. It shows a finger of snow breaking out across areas of the Triad and the foothills of North Carolina, as well as southwest Virginia. As we continue to move this forward into Friday morning, it suggests we may be waking up to moderate to heavy snow across Winston-Salem and Hickory. It even shows snow in Raleigh. This is the high-resolution rapid refresh model, and it shows the evolution of this first storm system across the southern and central plains over the next 48 hours. We will start the timeline in the late morning. The time is shown on your screen in Eastern Time, so if you are in the Central Time Zone, please adjust back 1 hour. As we move the forecast forward, the snow will continue to fall across areas of Colorado and across northern areas of New Mexico. As we move into this evening, around dinner time, you can see moisture beginning to develop in Texas and Louisiana. Snow may also begin in the far northwestern corners of the Oklahoma and Texas panhandles. A little bit of light snow also appears in the western areas of Kansas. As we continue to advance the timeline, we move into tomorrow morning, and the model does indicate a little bit of snow. In fact, this particular model is quite aggressive, showing a band of heavy snow located between Wichita Falls and Oklahoma City. It also depicts some snow in Amarillo, and a soaking rain developing over Louisiana and Mississippi. It even suggests a touch of wintry weather north of Huntsville, between Nashville and Huntsville, Alabama. We will have to see if that indeed happens, as it would be a little early for that area. Continuing through midday tomorrow, the model shows a wintry mix. The purple shading indicates sleet, while the blue indicates snow, suggesting some winter weather for the southern half of Oklahoma. As we move to the end of this model's forecast period, into Thursday night, I can see the potential for a wintry mix developing across the central areas of Arkansas. As we continue to move forward to the end of the model's projection, you can see this moisture beginning to interact with more of the cold air as it moves into Tennessee. This is why you see some purple shading, which indicates a mix of sleet and rain, and perhaps even a little snow in Nashville. We will have to watch carefully to see how this develops, as this particular model only extends out to about midnight tomorrow night. So, let us switch to the North American model, or NAM, for another perspective. It shows a similar situation, with the snowstorm ongoing across areas of Colorado where winter storm warnings are in effect. As we move forward into late tonight, we see heavy snow developing across northern sections, particularly in some of the favored, higher elevation regions of New Mexico. Then, some snow begins to fall, and the model even shows it becoming quite heavy later tonight. This would be around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning in the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas. As we progress into tomorrow morning, some snow will likely be falling across Amarillo and perhaps as far south as Lubbock, as well as near Guimon and in the Woodward area of Oklahoma. A little bit of snow could start to move into Oklahoma City as we move into tomorrow afternoon. My apologies, that is indeed tomorrow afternoon. As we continue into tomorrow evening, I could see a wintry mix occurring between Oklahoma City and Tulsa. So, this model presents a slightly different scenario, but for the most part, the overall forecast remains about the same. As we move into late tomorrow night, which is around midnight between Thursday and Friday, and then into 1, 2, and 3 o'clock on Friday morning, you can see a touch of winter weather developing across the Missouri Bootheel and beginning to move into the western areas of Kentucky. As we continue through the entirety of this model run, it does show snow breaking out across these areas, but we will discuss that in more detail shortly. Let us focus back on the southern plains for a moment. In Colorado, forecasters have increased the snowfall predictions for these areas. Denver is now forecast to receive 5 inches, with 6 inches for Castle Rock, and it is already snowing in these locations. If you are tuning in from this region, please let me know what you are seeing. This has certainly developed into a decent snowstorm, and officials have increased the snowfall totals, which I suspected they might. The higher elevated regions of New Mexico will also see accumulation. Santa Fe is forecast to receive around 1 inch, and they are even calling for 6/10 of an inch of snow in Clovis. Moving northward into Kansas, I could see a little bit of snow falling around Garden City and Dodge City, and perhaps as far north as Liberal and Colby. So, even though the latest National Weather Service forecast is not calling for any accumulations in those spots, I believe a little could occur. I would not be surprised if someone in the panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma manages to see an inch or so of snow, and even though they are not forecasting any snow here in the southern areas of Oklahoma, if the high-resolution model's projection unfolds, I believe we will see some light accumulations. I want to watch the area from Elk City to Lawton, and perhaps just south of Oklahoma City, very closely. I think someone in this region could see some light accumulations, and if you look at the latest high-resolution model, it does show a band of a couple of inches. Now, I think this may be a bit overestimated, but it is worth noting that it shows a touch of snow extending into the state of Arkansas. We will continue to monitor this, and we will have another update for you this evening. But for now, let's move forward and review the latest information from the European model. Let me just update this. And yes, wonderful. We have fresh information from the latest morning run. We will start this timeline on tomorrow evening, where you can see rain developing in the south. There is a great deal of moisture available for the deep south and the Gulf states. Then, as we move forward to about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, please note the timestamp. I know it can be quite small, especially on a phone screen, but you can find it right here. This is in Eastern Time, so if you are in the Central Time Zone, please adjust back by 1 hour. Around 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning, you can see the snow starting to move into the eastern United States. It then appears to become heavy across areas of southwest Virginia and southern West Virginia. Notice the band of snow in Kentucky. We will take a closer look at this in just a moment, as I first want to give you a broad overview. The model shows all rain for Charlotte. However, it indicates a messy mix of rain and ice in Asheville. This is due to the position of the high-pressure system and the location of cold air at the surface. It appears that conditions are more favorable for snow if you are away from the mountains and farther to the north and east. So, this is not strictly an elevation-driven event, but it is mainly determined by the location of the cold air source. This model shows some winter weather developing across northern areas of North Carolina around 10 o'clock in the morning. As we continue the timeline, it develops a band of what I would describe as moderate to heavy snow into the Washington, D.C., and Baltimore area. This snow then attempts to push all the way up to New York City. On Friday night, we see a thin area of freezing rain still ongoing across Virginia and northern North Carolina. This has shifted a little farther to the north and west in this latest model run, bringing more precipitation with it. As a result, we see a little bit of snow in southern New England during the early morning hours, and then the system moves away. Now, let us see what the GFS model shows. Here it comes. It is beginning to show a more significant event now. It projects a finger of snow breaking out across areas of the Triad and the foothills of North Carolina and into southwest Virginia. And as we continue to move this forward, on Friday morning, we are waking up to moderate to heavy snow across Winston-Salem and Hickory. It even shows snow in Raleigh. Now, I believe the GFS is perhaps a bit inaccurate with the snow placement here, but I can see this situation trending colder. There is a tremendous amount of cold air to the north, a real Arctic air mass. So, it is plausible that the cold air could have a stronger influence than what is being modeled. By mid-morning Friday, this model has it snowing in Raleigh, Danville, and Roanoke. The snow starts to move in, but the precipitation does not extend as far to the north. Consequently, very little of it reaches Washington, D.C., or New York City in this depiction. But please, take a look at this. At 10 o'clock on Friday morning, notice how heavy this snow appears. This darker shade of blue on the map indicates moderate to heavy snow. Let us now take a closer look specifically at North Carolina. Now let's switch our view and examine the 6 o'clock Zulu time model run. Here it is, giving us a closer look for everyone. You will want to have a good sense of where you are located on this map. While I find the colors on some models are not as vibrant, this particular one does an excellent job of displaying the names of towns and cities. For our friends in Charlotte, this system appears to be bringing just a cold rain, unfortunately. However, I could certainly see it beginning as a wintry mix. As you move northward toward Statesville, Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and even Raleigh, the model does indicate a little bit of snow. Then, you will notice the dark blue coloring. For instance, up here near Washington, D.C., that signifies snow is falling at a moderate pace. Afterward, this snow could transition into a wintry mix. The pink color you see represents freezing rain, so we could see a burst of snow followed by a period of freezing rain. It would be easy to say this will not be a significant event, but by North Carolina and even Virginia standards, this could create quite a few travel problems. As we move up the coastline here into the mid-Atlantic states to take a closer look, every model indicates a band of moderate snow reaching all the way into the Washington, D.C. corridor. This includes the Tidewater region and the Delmarva Peninsula, showing some snow getting into Delaware, and some snow farther back in West Virginia. Snow will also be trying to climb up into New Jersey, and you can see the pink shading, which is freezing rain, appearing around Richmond. As we continue, a band of snow reaches all the way into Philadelphia as we get into Friday afternoon and evening, with snow beginning to fall in the Washington, D.C. area as well. A little bit of snow is also projected for the New York City area and Long Island. Some snow may also try to reach into Rhode Island and Connecticut before the system moves out to sea. So, this is an interesting storm, to be sure. Let's refresh our data to see if we have any new information. No, we do not. The models are already being quite assertive with this storm system. This is not just a few fluke model runs, folks. The area you see right here is the official National Weather Service forecast. So, they are already calling for, say in Winston-Salem and Greensboro, a few tenths of an inch of snow. Now, I know you may be thinking that is not a lot, and you are correct, but it is enough to make everything look a little white. It will be very festive. Considering it is early December, it is often difficult to see this type of weather even in the heart of winter in North Carolina. They are already forecasting an inch to an inch and a half of snow around the Boone area, and showing a touch of snow perhaps down here in Asheville. You can also see the entire southern and southwestern corridor of Virginia is projected to receive anywhere from a half inch to 1 inch of snow. This particular forecast extends all the way through Friday morning. Forecasters are being a bit more conservative up here in the Washington, D.C. area, calling for about 3/10 of an inch of snow. I will show you more areas of the mid-Atlantic in a moment. They are already forecasting about a half inch to a few tenths of an inch of snow. I know this is not a large amount, but these totals could trend upward. This is a fairly confident forecast right from the start for the National Weather Service, so to have them calling for a touch of snow in these areas, from the actual expert human forecasters, is noteworthy. Now, looking at the European model ensemble from overnight, I do not want to ignore my friends here in the Missouri boot heel, Kentucky, and Tennessee. The model suggests there could be about, and remember this is a blend of 51 different model members, so some members show absolutely nothing. Others might show 1 to 2 inches of snow for any given area on this screen. For Nashville, the average is about a half inch. For Cookeville, it is 3/10 of an inch. For Johnson City, it is a half inch to perhaps an inch. We will need to watch the Tri-Cities region of Tennessee very closely. That area could be tricky, but as you move into central and eastern Kentucky, once you get into this blue area, that is where over an inch of snow could fall. So, we must watch that area, especially as we get deeper into Kentucky, and then as we start to move into North Carolina, Virginia, and West Virginia. For Hickory, the model shows 8/10 of an inch of snow, but please remember, this is a smoothed-out ensemble run, not an official forecast. I believe right now the official forecast is for a few tenths of an inch of snow in Hickory. For Greensboro, it is close to an inch. Danville, an inch and a half. Richmond, 1 to 2 inches of snow. Charlottesville, an inch to an inch and a half. Roanoke, an inch and a half of snow. Washington, D.C., an inch and a half of snow. So, this is not a huge event, but it is a very festive one, and if the precipitation changes to ice in these areas, it could certainly bring more of an impact. In fact, let's look at the potential for ice in these areas. This map shows the chances of seeing 1/10 of an inch of freezing rain from this event. You will notice this pocket of color between Greensboro and Raleigh. That is where there is about a 50% chance of seeing 1/10 of an inch of freezing rain. For example, if Greensboro gets 1/2 inch of snow and then 1/10 of an inch of freezing rain, that is a moderate event by Southern standards. That can create quite a mess on the roadways. I do think there are certain areas that will not get above freezing, particularly in Southwest Virginia and areas of northern and northwestern North Carolina. There is up to a 33% chance in Richmond and Danville, and a 30 to 40% chance of seeing 1/10 of an inch of freezing rain in all of this as well, with even a small chance in Charlotte. As we look farther north into the Washington, D.C. corridor, the Delmarva Peninsula, and the Tidewater region, 1 to 2 inches of snow is the common theme. We will need to watch this closely. It is definitely colder up there, which is more favorable for snow. 1.5 inches is forecast for Washington, D.C., and Baltimore. For Wilmington, nothing significant is expected. This you see right here is related to a previous storm. The model sometimes picks up on residual moisture. However, the ensemble does bring about 1/2 inch to 1 inch of snow all the way up into the southern sections of New England. It is forecasting just shy of 1 inch in New York City. That will be enough to make everything look nice and festive, if this is how it unfolds on Friday night and Saturday. We will continue to monitor it. What is driving this system is basically a moving source of cold air, and the timing is very favorable. Let me illustrate this for you. Do you see this 1030 millibar high-pressure system? This is moving in and will then move out. As it moves into place, it funnels in some cold, dry air at the surface. At the same time, this area in blue is our low-pressure system, moving moist air on top of that dry, cold air. When they meet, the moisture overrides the cold air, and we get what is called an overrunning event, which is also known as cold air damming. Now, this high pressure is not really locked in place. As the system moves, the high pressure leaves. This cold air is being supplied by a larger cold air source over eastern Canada and the Northeast. That is the same cold air source that is going to bring record-breaking cold air across areas of the Midwest and the Northeast over the next couple of days, rounding out our work week. So, it is a fleeting source of cold air, but it times up well with a little bit of moisture to the south. Moving past this system, there is another time frame I am watching towards the end of the weekend. This is getting into Sunday morning. Some snow is already breaking out on the American GFS model, which is rather aggressive, across Missouri and the southern areas of Illinois. I had a viewer ask me to mention southern Illinois, so there is your update. There is some snow breaking out on the GFS model. This is not a forecast, because the European model does not agree. I think it is simply going to be a soggy weekend across the southeast. Then, as we are starting to move into Sunday night, the model shows some snow breaking out across northern Kentucky and West Virginia. It seems I keep mentioning these same states. A little bit of snow tries to show up again back in Missouri and northern Arkansas. Then, a piece of energy dives in, and cold air collapses over this moisture as we are getting into Monday morning. The model then wants to show a significant snowstorm, though not as aggressive as the overnight run, which was quite extreme. The GFS model wants to show snow breaking out across North Carolina, and even across areas of northern South Carolina, before it moves out. I do not believe that scenario is likely. I am not trying to dampen anyone's spirits. As you know, I enjoy winter weather, but I like to keep the forecast realistic. If you look at the latest European model, as we get into Sunday morning, there's a little bit of moisture hanging around, but there is not enough cold air in place. Then, as we look at that next time frame, the European model does show energy here. You can see it in the form of snow across the Midwest. There is some energy across the mountains and just enough cold air for the higher elevations to see some snow, while the lower elevations see rain. We have a big area of low pressure off the coast of the southeast, but nothing is combining the way the GFS model is showing. The GFS model has a tendency to be a little too energetic with systems that drop down from the northern Rockies. Now, could it trend toward what the GFS is showing? Absolutely. There is energy in place. There is enough energy in the atmosphere to be squeezed out in the mountains in the form of higher elevation snow. I think it is just going to be a wintry weekend up in the mountains. As we move past this time frame, we can only go 144 hours out on the European model. So, of course, the GFS model's ensemble is going to follow its own operational run. This is for the system that we just broke down in the beginning of the video for this Friday and Saturday. You can see that disappear. This map moves in 24-hour periods. You can see how the GFS model detects that next storm system right here, with a small footprint of snow showing up and diving down to North Carolina. One thing, as I said, the ensemble from the GFS always follows its operational run, so, if you get an extreme model run, the GFS is typically going to be backed up by its own ensemble. That does not make it correct, because we prefer to look at agreement between different models, but it is just a consistent behavior of that particular model. So, there is a signal from the GFS ensemble, but I am just not convinced yet. I am not trying to be negative, as you all know. Now, does the European model ensemble support this at all? This is the system for Friday and Saturday, which shows a pretty clear signal. Then we move past that. You can see as we are getting into Monday morning and Monday night, there is a touch of snow showing up, dipping south, but it is blended in with a lot of other features. It definitely shows the mountains, but elsewhere the signal is weak. In general, I do not see anything really backing that more extreme solution up. So yes, I see the very aggressive GFS run for North Carolina, especially the one last night that literally showed a foot of snow over the state, but I am simply not buying it at this time. That does not mean it cannot happen, but I remain unconvinced. So, what about the period after all of that? Let's look deeper into next week, around this same time. Next week. Let us explore what else the models are showing us. Beginning next Monday evening, the general theme appears to be an active northern stream of air. The primary question is whether it will draw upon any energy from the southern stream. So, as I move this forecast map forward, you will see numerous areas of blue and green appearing up north. Let us continue to move ahead in time. By next Wednesday, you can see a clipper system moving through the Great Lakes region. However, at the very end of the forecast period, you will notice that 540 line diving deep into the country. This, by the way, is a current operational forecast. A whole portion of Arctic air is projected down into the central and eastern United States. Naturally, this could produce some very active weather, including snow across the mountain regions. The models indicate a great deal of northwest flow activity accompanying this trough across the Ohio Valley. This would be for next Thursday evening. If a scenario like this were to unfold, it would deliver a fresh shot of Arctic air and additional energy from that northern stream. For now, we are not seeing any signs of a massive storm system. It is a pattern where the existing cold tends to reinforce itself, but that could certainly change. The American GFS model is also showing a large trough descending late next week. I believe this is an adjustment based on what we are observing with the MJO progression, which is why I expect the models will continue to trend colder. We see a similar story here, with a piece of energy in the northern stream. The GFS model shows a rather aggressive-looking clipper system across the Great Lakes region, and another one follows right behind it, as we approach this time next week. That is a 987 millibar clipper, which is quite strong and will bring heavy snow to whichever areas it tracks over. Following that, as you might expect, a shot of cold air moves in. We also see some snow across parts of the Appalachian Mountains, and then another area of snow begins to drop south. This is quite an interesting development. The trough is digging in, and moderate snow is beginning to form across the plains. I must admit, I am hoping for some snow, as I have a trip to the mountains planned for next weekend in the Gatlinburg, North Carolina and Tennessee area. Looking ahead to Friday morning, the forecast does indeed show a large trough dropping southward. This would bring some snow across the central Appalachians, and then that cold air would gradually settle farther to the south. This forecast is quite similar to what the European model is showing, which is a significant trough moving south. Anytime you see that 540 line drop this far south on the map, you can be certain that a shot of cold air is on its way. This is also supported by the European ensemble models. This large, colorful area represents the energy we are monitoring for early next week. The European ensemble model does not develop it as strongly as the American GFS model does. However, after that system, the overall pattern favors activity in the northern part of the country. The question will be if it can tap into any moisture farther south. For now, this is the northern energy we are watching. It is an active northern stream pattern, so we can expect numerous clipper systems regardless of what happens in the south. On the latest European ensemble, I am noticing that this area of energy, about a week from today, is dipping a little bit deeper compared to the information I shared with you in last night's video. You can observe how the energy is pushing farther south into the eastern United States. That is a noteworthy trend, as it could allow the system to tap into some of that southern stream moisture if it continues. However, this still appears to be a pattern dominated by the northern stream. That does not mean we cannot have some decent snow events a little farther to the south. I am not referring to places like Birmingham, Alabama, or Atlanta, Georgia, but it is a trend we must continue to watch. There is a slight but definite trend for this energy to dig more. This is occurring because we are seeing a stronger trend of a trough digging farther south, as you can see right here. The blue on the map represents that trough, which is an area of lower pressure. Energy is always associated with it. The warmer colors, such as the yellows and oranges, indicate higher pressure. This is a ridge building across the western United States. This pattern begins this coming Monday morning, the 8th, and you can see a trough anchored over the eastern United States. This will bring reinforcing shots of cold air and the energy associated with it. Then the trough reasserts itself, so to speak, and continues to dig down into our region. So, energy will continue to flow down the pipeline and around the base of this trough. Now, you may notice this area of white embedded in the surrounding blue. If you want this energy to truly dig in and tap into something more substantial, for more significant winter weather, the cold air is already in place. We would need this area of energy to dig down into this region. For that to happen, you need the ridge out west to build much stronger. We would need this ridge to build higher to the north so that this trough can dig deeper to the south. But regardless of that potential, this trough is certain to bring energy our way. This energy is currently expected to produce northern stream clippers and northwest flow snow events. But that can change, and I want to keep reminding you of that. This trough appears to be staying with us for a while. The model does show a ridge at the end of the period, but I am not 100% convinced. In fact, if we look at the run-to-run shifts in the models, we see a clear trend. As we look toward next week, you see how the blue appears on the map? That represents a trend towards lower pressure, a deeper trough, and colder air, and we are already heading in that direction. Once again, the model guidance is adjusting to a more significant trough over the central and eastern United States. In doing so, it is pushing that western ridge farther back in time. I think there is a good chance the ridge may not build in at all, and the GFS model shows that possibility. It shows the same type of pattern. I am not sure how far the latest model run extends, but it continues to show this trough over the eastern United States. There is a clear signal for that trough to strengthen as we head toward the end of next week. The question remains, how far south will it dig? Either way, that will result in a significant shot of cold air across the eastern United States. And as I said, it does hint at a ridge at the end. I just remain skeptical of that for now. So, regardless of the storm track, I have already shown you the temperature forecast. This pattern is going to continue to bring reinforcing shots of cold air. The winter precipitation is the part we still need to figure out. That is always the challenge in forecasting. Once you have the cold air in place, you then have to locate the moisture. Temperatures are normally the first piece of the puzzle. But as we get into next week, we see the blues and greens, indicating below average temperatures. Then you see this deep purplish color appear. That represents temperatures that are 20, 25, or even 30 degrees below average. We will continue to deal with these shots of cold air. We may get a slight modification of temperatures around next Wednesday or Thursday, and then another shot follows. Another blast of cold air arrives next weekend. It appears it will stay cold for nearly the entire forecast period. The model does show a ridge trying to build at the end, but I am not convinced it will happen. And I will tell you precisely why I feel that way. I do not want to make a statement like that without giving you my reasoning. If you look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, you will understand. This outlook covers the 8th through the 12th of December, and it points toward below average temperatures in the east and above average temperatures in the west. When we go to the 8 to 14 day outlook, from the 10th through the 16th, it still indicates the same for the eastern United States. It does show some above average temperatures trying to move into the southern tier of the country, but the main reason I am skeptical of this ridge is something else. The reason I believe we will continue to see these colder adjustments is this chart right here. Let me see if we have a fresh update. I will just refresh the browser. I always want to try to bring you the freshest information available. Sometimes I catch the new update, and sometimes I do not. I believe we might be a little too early for this one. I just want to look at this with you, if I may. This chart goes all the way out to the 16th of the month. This is the MJO forecast. Let me explain this again for our new viewers. If you look at the MJO chart, you can see these different phases. Phase 6, Phase 5, and Phase 4 are what we consider to be warm phases for our weather pattern. When the MJO is in these phases, most of the lower 48 states will deal with warm air. This does not mean you cannot get shots of cold air, nor does it mean you cannot get winter weather. In fact, we had some in November when we were in Phase 5 and 6. Now, Phase 8, Phase 1, and Phase 2 are the colder phases. Phase 3 and Phase 7 are what I like to call transitional phases. So, where are we now, and where are we heading? Well, today is December the 3rd, yesterday was the 2nd, and tomorrow is the 4th. This means we are currently right here on the chart. So, we are likely in Phase 8 right now, perhaps for the first full day or two. And Phase 8, which I have just circled, is the most favorable phase for winter weather, for those of us who enjoy the cold weather in the central and eastern United States. So, we are finally moving into that phase, and believe me, this was the difficult part of the forecast. It seems like only yesterday we were talking about being way over on the other side of this chart, hoping to get into Phase 8. Very often, these long-range forecasts can pull the rug out from under us. by trending towards unfavorable phases. But no, this time we have made it, and it shows us remaining in phase 8 for the next couple of weeks. This gives the atmosphere time to respond to this new pattern. Now, there is a chance we could drift into this center circle, which indicates a weaker version of whatever phase we are in. This would simply mean we see a less impactful response from the weather. So, depending on the phase, you may not see much of a response in our weather at all. For example, if we were in phase 6 but near the center, you might not get the full impacts that phase 6 normally brings. The same is true for phase 8. The forecast does show us in a slightly weaker phase of phase 8. And please note, if we drift into phase 1 and 2, those are also favorable phases. So, I truly believe that the computer models are struggling to adjust to the fact that we are moving fully into a very favorable MJO phase. Now, I do not pretend to be an expert on this subject. I know enough about it to recognize that this is an excellent tool for forecasting long-range patterns. It has a lot to do with thunderstorm activity out in the Pacific Ocean, and other similar factors. Perhaps I can put a link in the description with more explanations of the MJO for those who are interested. When I create these weather videos, I focus on the topics I am most comfortable discussing. I remember a time, perhaps 3 or 4 years ago, when I was not as comfortable talking about a trough or a ridge and what it meant for the weather at the surface. I have since become very comfortable with that. So, this is a subject that I will continue to learn more about over time. I simply know which phases we need to be in to increase our chances for cold and winter weather. But I do appreciate you following along with the more technical aspects of the forecast. As for today's weather, the southeast is looking quite peaceful, my friends. It is going to be cold, as our cooler start to December continues across a large part of the area of moisture that is building up here in the south. In fact, we could awaken to some thunderstorms along the southeastern Louisiana coastline. The northeast will have a quiet but very cold day. Later this evening, we expect some snow to begin moving into New England, which will bring a light amount of snowfall accumulation. I believe tomorrow could be a very festive-looking day across the northeast with just some light snow gently falling. We have already discussed the south-central United States, but we will be waking up to some snow across the Great Lakes region. Lake-effect snow will get started once again across the upper peninsula of Michigan and lower Michigan, and I expect a band of light snow to develop. It is even possible we could see some of that here in Missouri. Even though it is not appearing on this particular computer model, it is likely to be ongoing for Missouri, parts of Illinois, and certainly Indiana and Ohio. You can see it developing down at the bottom of your screen. When we wake up tomorrow morning, you can expect to see some snow in the southern areas of Ohio, extending into northern West Virginia and northern Kentucky. I feel this scenario is very likely. And in fact, forecasters have mentioned some light snowfall accumulations, perhaps around 0.8 of an inch in Indianapolis, and a touch of snow in Cincinnati and Dayton. So, we are adding to the seasonal snowfall totals in these areas. As I mentioned yesterday and again this morning, it is shaping up to be a good old-fashioned winter, my friends. It truly does seem like a traditional winter in many of these places. Now, if we look north into lower Michigan, this is the forecast for the next 48 hours, with more snow on the way. The same is true for the upper peninsula of Michigan. More snow is expected. Now, I do want to mention the exceptionally cold low temperatures we are forecasting for tomorrow morning. These temperatures will be record-breaking for certain areas, dropping to 16 degrees below zero in parts of Iowa. Please understand, this is not just a model projection. This is the actual forecast low temperature from the National Weather Service. This is a serious and dangerous cold, especially for early December, rather than the middle of January. Take a look at these low temperatures forecast for tomorrow morning across the upper Midwest. Now, here is a look at Friday morning. It will not be much better. We will see a pocket of sub-zero temperatures across the northern half of Illinois, with single digits everywhere else. This is a direct result of the very deep snowpack we have on the ground. As for conditions out west, we have already discussed the snow moving across the Rockies and down into the southern plains. You can review that information at the beginning of the video if you happen to miss it. Another system is moving into the Pacific Northwest. As for temperatures, it will be a chilly, cold day across the southeast, and cold throughout the eastern United States. The only place not experiencing the cold is central and southern Florida. Deep, Arctic air is moving into the northern sections of the country, while conditions remain varied out west. That is all the information I have for you now. Thank you for tuning in. God bless all of you. Please have a wonderful and safe day. I look forward to speaking with you again this evening.